Let's talk Kazuma Okamoto, a 4-year, $60 million contract Okamoto puts pen to paper for with the Toronto Blue Jays. These are two guys that have clearly won over their fan base within the first 24 hours of the ink being dry. Tatsuya Imai goes to a Houston Texans game before he even puts pen to paper with the Astros. And then Okamoto is going down a slide on a video that the Blue Jays post. And, they both have in English rallying cry for the fan base ready to go at their signing event. Okamoto seems to be a really fun addition to the Toronto Blue Jays. And we get into who the player is with Aram momentarily. But I want to start with your thoughts on this, Peter. This guy he was clearly a sought after bat on the free agent market. And there were teams that popped up. The Pittsburgh Pirates seem to be rumored to be interested in Kazuma Okamoto. There were plenty of other teams, but it's Toronto that's the one that gets it done. Why do you feel like Toronto was the one to put their hat in the ring and come out victorious?
I think what Toronto has done this offseason is operated in a market where a lot of teams are hesitant and they see this offseason as their lane in order to build a team that can not only make the World Series once, but be a perennial World Series contender. And, you already have the moves with Dylan Cease and Tyler Rogers and Cody Ponce. And now you add Okamoto to the fold. Now, for 4 years and $60 million, you're hoping that he could be a middle of the order, maybe 5-6 hitter in the lineup,
Leighton is back.
giving you consistent production. We're dealing with what's going on here?
No, we're good. We're good. We're fine.
Dealing with you want a guy in the middle of the lineup who can hit you 20 home runs and hit between 270 to 280 and not strike out a lot. And he fits right into what the Blue Jays want to do, their contact-driven identity, right? What made the Blue Jays so good? Obviously, they could hit for power, but with 2 strikes, the ability to take a walk, the ability to fight with 2 strikes and not strike out. That's what they're getting with this guy. When you compare him to Munetaka Murakami, which is a big bet on his ability to hit for power. And even Aram came on and said that there's the potential that it's a 20 hit tool and an 80 power tool, where with Okamoto, we're likely looking at 50s and 55s across the board. And that fits right into exactly what Toronto wants to do. And when you look at his projections on Fangraphs, the bullish projection has him at a 115 WRC plus, which means projecting him to be about 15% above league average. But it's the home runs that jumped out to me, Jack. We've seen him hit 30-plus home runs in the MPB a bunch of times. But normally when you come over, that power doesn't necessarily translate like we might think. 27 home runs from the Bat X, which has won numerous awards for accuracy. So when I looked at a potential comp for him, I actually looked at Ian Happ's season last year, where it's about a 250 average. It's a pretty high OBP, decently high slugging in the 430 range with 23 home runs. Now, I don't think he's going to walk at a 13% rate like Ian Happ, and I don't even think he's going to play defense at the level that Ian Happ will. But I think that's the type of bat they just brought in.
Interesting. Aram is going to present a different type of comp for Kazuma Okamoto. What I will push back on is he didn't walk too much in NPB, and Hap is a high OBP guy because he will walk and he will see some pitches. I will say Kazuma Okamoto, like the power numbers coupled with the bat to ball ability and the batting average numbers are encouraging for somebody that may not be playing every day. And you look at where this lineup stands right now, and after they sign Okamoto, you're saying, okay, are they still in the hunt for Bregman, Bichette, Tucker? Apparently they are. Bob Nightingale reported that they are still in the mix for, one of those 3 big names on the free agent market. Then people become more expendable. Who's the kind of guy that you move out of the equation to fortify a different piece of your roster? Is it a Joey Loperfido? Is it a Davis Schneider? Is it a Nathan Lucas, who was really good for you last year as a corner outfield bat? He's a good defensive corner outfielder too. I have no idea which way they're going to go here, but it seems like there is someone that could be an odd man out. Is it going to be Miles Straw? Miles Straw was a nice, like, feel good story for them last year, but you're probably not going to hurt too much and lose too much sleep if you're, ditching the Miles Straw experiment here. They are so darn deep. And I understand that Tyler Heineman is not the best backup catcher in baseball, but this bench is really good. They've got reinforcements hanging out in AAA Buffalo at the beginning of the year. This is as good an offensive situation as you could possibly ask for. So I don't know, man. This jumps out as a super duper encouraging thing for me, for Toronto, and for Kazuma Okamoto, finding the right spot for him. The reports are that he's going to be a super utility guy for the Blue Jays. We've got about 30 seconds in this segment. Slam dunk, best team in the AL, no contest, yes or no?
I think they have to do that going into the season, and I think Ernie Clement's going to be the odd man out, and they will sign Bo Bichette, bring back the core.
That's crazy. And then they should absolutely be the leader in the clubhouse in the American League. We'll be back for more Okamoto thoughts in a moment on the Just Baseball Show. Aram Layton is back, and Aram Layton is here to do a player breakdown on Kazuma Okamoto. Okamoto signed a 4-year, $60 million contract over the weekend with the Toronto Blue Jays. This came up against the deadline for him to sign with a major league team. It's a 45-day posting window for these guys that are coming over from NPB in Japan or the KBO in Korea. And Okamoto worked it until the final 24 to 36 hours of that posting window, and he finds his spot in Toronto. And we're going to get into the fit, I guess, and where he'll play, how often he'll play a little bit later on in this segment. But I just want to start with the kind of player that Toronto is getting. When this deal initially came through, I was like, oh, they get a slugging third baseman. They're good. But there's so much versatility with all their other guys. And it seems like Okamoto has some versatility in his own right. What do you feel like Toronto's getting in Kazuma Okamoto?
I think the ability to be creative. And that's what I like about it is, I'm still really fascinated to see what they do the rest of the offseason, but they've clearly set themselves up to where they can do a lot of different things. They can mix and match this lineup because of what you alluded to, and we'll talk about the exact ways that they can maybe mix and match it. But I love, like, you're up against it a little bit, and teams are trying to figure out, well, what am I going to do? I don't want to sign X player if we're also in on Y player because they overlap with each other. Okamoto, with a firm deadline here, which we don't really have, there's no such thing in an MLB free agency aside from guys who get posted. If anything, there's the opposite. It's almost encouraged not to have a deadline there. You have to make that decision. But why I love the Okamoto signing for the Blue Jays, but any team who would have signed him, is it doesn't stop you from making another addition, right? Like, because you can move him to first base. You could keep him at third. You could put him in left. And I think that's the part that is really exciting for a Blue Jays team that's clearly not done. I mean, we'll see what happens, but they clearly are not done trying. And Okamoto is a guy that doesn't just anchor one position and you say, all right, I guess we're out on, X or Y players. So that's why I love it. I love the fit there. And then from the perspective of, like, I think about Okamoto, the Pirates, that would have been great. But that's not a guy that I think is, especially in year one, going to sit in the 3-hole for you and put your offense on his back. Like, I think it's a guy that's going to be a really solid complementary piece and a solid 6-hitter, or even a guy that you put in the 2-hole against lefties, whatever it may be, but be a really solid, above average complementary bat. And then maybe by year 3 or year 2, you start to see those pops more. But in a lineup like Toronto's, he doesn't need to be anything other than that, 6-hitter for them that I think is fits the mold really, really well, which we'll get into.
Yeah. So I was thinking about $15 million a year. Do you want this super utility guy? And that's what the report is about Kazuma Okamoto, that Toronto is still fully invested into the Bichette run and the Bregman run and the Kyle Tucker run. Toronto is looking to put their team over the top. And to be honest, with the additions they've already made this offseason, I thought they have. Like, I feel like we'll go into next year saying this team is probably the best in the American League, and they have a, darn solid chance at repeating as American League champions. But if they grab a Bregman or a Tucker, or they retain a Bichette, they bring him back, this team is undeniably the best team in the American League. And then I was thinking about $15 million for Okamoto. But then I looked at the other guys that are making north of $15 million a year. And it's not like all of them are middle of the order mashers. Like, look at Andres Jimenez, who is also a Toronto Blue Jay. He's probably going to play shortstop for them. Andres Jimenez is making 15.2 this year. Christian Walker has been pretty disappointing for Houston after year one. He's making 20. Jorge Polanco is making 20. Ha-Sung Kim, who just signed back with the Braves, is making $20 million.
Yep.
There are guys that are like six hitters that are making the 15-ish number on a per year basis. So I guess if he plays 120, 130 games and he bounces around a little bit, whether it's, the DH spot if Springer cycles into the outfield or they're getting him a day off. If he plays third base a lot, maybe plays some first base to get Vladdy in the DH spot a little bit. It makes a lot of sense at that price point, given the production that he's, put up in Japan.
100%. And that's why, I thought he is like a $60 million player. Like that would be the value I think you put on a player like him. But I was wondering if the bidding might get driven up just because of that. Like you can scratch so many different itches you may have as a general manager. And it's funny when I was looking at trying to think of like a comparison for Okamoto. There's not really a clear-cut one. I think there's some like say a Suzuki Light to the offensive game, but they're very different defensively, obviously. I think Suzuki gives you more power, but I was looking at Suzuki's data when he was in NPB. It's different balls. They've had weird trends in that regard, but it wasn't that much more substantial, if at all, than Okamoto's. And Seiya has been a really good bat. The other thing that I thought was interesting is with the way that Okamoto can play third, play corner outfield, and now even plug in at first, he's not all that different from Addison Barger, who the Blue Jays obviously really like. And you think, well, if you already have Addison Barger at home, why bring in another? I think they're going to platoon, and I think they're going to platoon as well as anybody in Major League Baseball. And they have different options to do that. If you end up doing the Bichette thing, I don't know what they're going to do defensively there. That'll be fascinating. But I just think about Clement and Jimenez, who are both fantastic defenders. Of course, Clement more at second and third, Jimenez anywhere you put him. Jimenez was almost unusable against left-handed pitching. I don't think there's a reason in a lineup that deep for him to ever see left-handed pitching. You know that the Blue Jays typically prefer to maybe not have Barger face lefties as much. Maybe they'll even want to shield Varsho from time to time. They can get creative now in the ways that they want to do that because they have, an absolute lefty killer in Okamoto, who this past year, I know it was a smaller sample size, but 1,100 OPS, and through his career has hit lefties really, really well. So Nathan Lucas doesn't ever have to see a lefty either. They can really platoon their way to the more desired matchups that put them in a really good spot. You don't always have to, though, at the same time. Like, these are good players that can face lefties and righties. I think Barger's just fine left on left if you want to try to get him out there and battle. But like Ernie Clement, probably not a guy that you even want to see righties that much. He destroyed lefties. So now you have a team here that is only going to get better from within because you're going to put these already pretty good players or good players in positions to be great more often. And I really like that fit. And Okamoto allows them to do that. I think Okamoto is a guy that you're not going to short platoon, obviously, but he can play a different position in your mash lefties lineup. He allows you to move some things around a little bit more.
Yeah. Kazuma Okamoto, since 2018, is a 22-year-old in Japan. Home run totals, 33, 31, 31, 39, 30, 41, 27, and 15 in 77 games this year. He's coming off of injury. But this guy, like over his last couple of years, his last, 3 full seasons, let's play that game, 252 with 30 homers, then 278 with 41 homers, then 280 with 27 homers. The thing that is more sustained for him in Major League Baseball when it comes to the batting average of the home runs is what?
I would say it's tough because he does such a good job of pulling the ball in the air, and the exit velocities have consistently been above average. But it's hard to ignore the bat to ball skills as well. I would say it's a cop-out answer, but the blend of both. Like, I don't think either is going to be off the charts. But if you're average to above average hit tool wise and average to above average power wise, you're going to be quite productive. I think the most interesting thing to follow, and I think this is the biggest separator between he and Seiya Suzuki, is the approach. The approach isn't bad by any means, but I want to see swing decisions that are generally plus, and Seiya's were plus, and you're only going to see better stuff that's harder to decide against, right? So that's something to monitor that I think could degrade the hit tool, in collateral a little bit. But I think what's very clear is he's going to mash lefties and he's going to hit the ball hard. And if you look since the start of the 2021 season, he's a 940 OPS against lefties. My biggest question is, yes, he can play these different positions. How well? Because that's going to be from a WAR output. If he's slightly below with the Willie Castro thing, right? If he's like slightly below average at a bunch of different spots, still valuable, but not as valuable. If he's a good third baseman, passable left fielder, a great first baseman, that's very valuable. So I think that's going to be a fun variable to monitor with Okamoto as well.
We've got about 45 seconds. Yes or no, quick reason why. If they do nothing else, if they don't bring back Bichette, if they don't sign Tucker, if they don't sign Bregman, the Toronto Blue Jays should be considered the favorite in the American League.
Yes, I think so. I mean, the pitching got better, and it's only going to get better. And like I said, even with the way that the offense is set up now, they can platoon their way to more success.
Another yes or no. Toronto has had the best offseason of any team in baseball.
Ooh. Yeah, I would say so.
I think yes. The Pirates are probably second relative to expectations, but I would think Toronto has had, in terms of getting Cease and getting Cody Ponce from the KBO and now Kazuma Okamoto, it feels like they have put up the best offseason in baseball, not even to mention Tyler Rogers in their bullpen. We'll be back to wrap up the show with the last two segments next on the Just Baseball Show. So I want to pose to you, Peter Apple, that final question. Have the Toronto Blue Jays put up the best offseason in Major League Baseball to this point? Yes or no?
Yeah. I don't even think it's really a conversation either, because not only did they bring in good talent, they brought in needs, right? The Blue Jays, I think, need is a strong word, but they definitely could have used a top of the rotation guy like Dylan Cease. And was it a little bit too much money? Maybe. Was Okamoto for $60 million? Maybe a little bit too much, possibly. But here's the thing. There's multiple reasons why I don't really care if it's a little bit too much money.
Sure.
Number one, I think the idea of bringing a guy into Canada and that's the reason that you have to pay them more money, I don't believe that. There are a lot of great cities. Toronto's a great city. I think it has to do with
exchange rates. Yeah. Keep going.
I think it has to do with the fact that they have to pay more income tax. So you're going to have to give them a little bit more money because they're going to have to pay a little bit more in tax, right? So all these guys are going to be a little bit more money than the market might give them. But reason number two, I don't really care. Rogers Communications has $2 billion less, at least according to Forbes, than Steve Cohen, right? Steve Cohen is way above everybody else at about $21.8 billion. Rogers Communications projected 19.6. So they have the money to do it. And we saw what happened with Anthony Santander. I think he's going to bounce back and be a really solid outfielder for them. I think he's going to find the power. I think there's potentially 30 to 40 home runs still left in that bat next season. But we saw them sign him to a big multi-year deal. And not only did it not affect them at all, they've gone full bore this offseason.
Yep.
Right? You have Anthony Santander to a $100 million deal and it doesn't work out. What do? You give $200 million to Dylan Cease. You give $30 million to Cody Ponce, who the last time we saw him in big league action, he was getting ousted with the Pirates. Right? Tyler Rogers, they give him near a closer type deal for a guy who's not expected to be their closer. And then Okamoto gets the most money of any Japanese free agent. But it's okay. They can do both. And there are reasons why the amount of money for Toronto doesn't really matter to me. And what also makes me more excited that Bichette and Tucker are on the table.
Yes. The Toronto Blue Jays have been as good as really any team in baseball at pursuing the free agent market so far this winter, and there could be more to go.